What actually changes when women transform their relationship with money? Not just how they invest, but how they see themselves, how they use their time, protect their energy, and claim agency. Today on the Flourish Feed podcast, I'm joined by Saijal Patel to explore what's truly at the heart of women's money transformation, how it differs from the scripts we inherited, and what becomes possible when wealth is designed to support flourishing. But first, let's get to know the incredible woman known to many as Sage a little bit. Saijal Patel is a wealth coach, strategist, and former foreign correspondent whose career spans global journalism, finance, and women's leadership. Before working in wealth and money coaching, Saijal reported from around the world as a journalist, developing a deep understanding of power, inequality, culture, and the human stories that sit beneath economic systems. Today, she brings that investigative lens to transforming how women think about, use, and grow money. Saijal works with high-achieving women, founders, and professionals to help them build financial confidence, clarity, and agency, but without abandoning their values or well-being. That's a delicate line to balance. Her approach focuses on uncovering the invisible narratives that shape women's financial behavior around earning, investing, spending, and generosity. She's known for blending practical strategy with deep insight into identity and social conditioning. Saijal helps women move from financial hesitation to intentional stewardship, using money as a tool for autonomy, impact, and of course, the flourishing life. Saijal Patel, welcome to the Flourish Feed podcast.
Great to see you, Jillian. Thanks for inviting me.
Marvelous. So you work with women, many of them. And when a woman comes to you and says, I want to feel confident with money, what's she actually asking for? What's beneath those words?
Yeah, so I think women understand that money is important and it's a tool to be able to achieve the things that they want to achieve, their most important dreams. But Jillian, I also know that they understand that it's not as simple or straightforward, right? We actually need to invest in the education and build the tools to be able to navigate all of those aspects of money, whether it's saving or banking or understanding how taxes work. And you're doing this at a time when life changes around you and the economic landscape changes around you. And so I hear this a lot. I hear, "Oh, Sejal, I just want to be more confident with money." And my fear is, and my concern is that we tend to send this message to women that they are just going to wake up one day and be confident.
Mm.
That it's something that it's like an end goal, but they kind of forget that there's a process in getting there. And so sometimes I ask them, like, what does that mean? Like, what would you do to be more confident? And I usually stump them on that because they've been told that it's just something that, well, you wake up and you're just confident. And I have to remind them that it doesn't work that way.
Right.
We were not confident riding a bicycle before we actually rode a bicycle and fell off in practice.
Yes.
And we should be approaching money the same way. So the way I tweak that, Jolene, is I say, let's change that language and say, I am confident that I have the ability to learn what it takes to manage money so I can achieve my dreams.
So the confidence doesn't come from the money, it comes from the person.
It comes from the person and it comes from the process,
Yes.
the education and putting in time and practice. That is in everything that we do in life. We didn't know how to cook. Every time I talk to women, I say, well, you're a mom. Yeah. Well, how did you feel being a first time mom? Well, I wasn't confident. Well, how'd you figure it out? Well,
One
I
day
just
at a time.
got in it.
Yeah.
I did. I go, it's the same thing with money.
You're absolutely right. And the cool thing about money that I was reminded by a guest yesterday that I interviewed is that it's made up, right? Like it's not a real thing. It's got a value that we all believe in. It's a story, but that story oftentimes has some feelings underneath it. And so your process for helping somebody become confident with money, think of it as, what are the different stations you have to go through to build that confidence? What are some of the stations? Because we don't just have money. We actually do a lot of things with it, right? We earn it, we invest it, we save it, we share it, we donate it generously. So tell us a couple of the tips on what that process is
Yeah.
for being confident to be good with money?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is the awareness piece. Like you said, money's just this thing. I always say it's a piece of paper. You give it power by attaching your values to it and then
Mhm.
manifesting those
Uh-huh.
values. That's what it is. Except that our relationship with money is way more emotional than it is rational. Way more. And I don't care who you're talking to. It is
I
underneath.
totally agree with you. It's not math, it's feelings.
It is. It's 100% feelings. And those feelings and our beliefs and our habits towards how we use money is what we call money scripts. And you know about money scripts. So we talk about it certainly in the financial world. And it's good that we're talking about it a lot more. That money script was given, like we had a money script by the time we were about 7 or 8 years old, believe it or not, right? And it's things that we heard our parents say or not say, or whether they fought over it. I mean, so much of it, Jillian, is subconscious. So the first thing
Yes.
that we go through, at least in my community, in my program, is that piece. What is that? What is that script? Where did you get it? That's the awareness. Now, I will always say that there's a lot of that works for you. Of course it does. You do things because it works on some level.
Mhm.
But
Mm.
I need to uncover the parts that aren't working for you, that might be getting in your way when it comes to money. So we go through that whole exercise of what that is.
What do you
And
find
yeah,
Sorry, I was just gonna say, when you do that digging and you've also identified that it happens around 7 or 8 that we start to form these beliefs, is there a trend when it comes to women as to what that money script is? Or is it as unique as every single person?
there are a few trends. Like I hate generalizing
I
because
know, but
everyone
you
is,
knew I was
everyone
gonna
is
ask.
different. It is everyone
Yeah.
different. Yeah. But no, I would say that a lot of women tell me that their parents never talked to them about money, or they talked to their brothers about money, but they didn't talk to the girls about money or the daughters. And this is, by the way, this is all research backed. That is very true.
But I can see it because if you don't talk about it, it becomes taboo. Right? You know it's there. It's like the monster in the basement or the boogeyman or whatever. It's a mythology that I'm not allowed to be part of or that I don't have the bridge to connect what I heard with what it means. That makes so much sense,
Yeah. Or I'm not capable. Like this is
right?
this is not the world for me. That somebody else money is a world for men and not for women, right? Now, parents, they didn't know either. So I
Mhm.
always, I preface this, all of this. So like I say, your parents, it's not like we're not blaming parents. They did what they knew as well and
Sure.
what was taught to them. But they're picking, even when I have conversations with parents now, I said, if you're not talking to your children about money and equally, they're going to pick it up from somewhere.
You're right, and I have to say, like, when I think about my parents' generation and the generation before them, women didn't work, so there wasn't really a lot of women didn't work. I won't say all, but the relationship that you have with money generally comes from receiving it somehow. And if you go out and you earn it, all of a sudden you have to become pretty serious about how it works. So I can see that, quite honestly, generationally, we're now reaching a point where women are working pretty much 100% of the time at some point in their lives. And maybe now it's time to develop this language, but it's coming from I don't know, an inherited script, an inherited biology that we're not supposed to know how it works.
I'm so glad you hit on that because I've been thinking a lot about this. I feel, when we talk about identity and women as the caregivers and the nurturers and we like to belong, right? I think that does stem back to the 70s and the 80s where traditionally women were at home and you could survive on a one income household. So it was just natural for women to say, well, yeah, I manage the household budget and, I make these decisions. It made perfect sense. And then men associate money as being the breadwinner, the caretaker, the power,
The hunter.
right? Right. It's because men are typically judged by how much they make. And women, I find, are typically judged on they're rated on how they're on their caregiving duties. Like, oh, that's a bad mother, or that's a good mother, or your house is perfect. And
When we beat ourselves up that way all the time. I
all
mean,
the
we do
time.
it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting that our economic landscape has completely changed? You can't rely on a one income household. But those traditions and those biases and those beliefs haven't caught up.
You're absolutely right. So if we say that awareness of these disconnects or these things that are no longer serving each other, that's our first step is awareness of ourselves and awareness of the landscape. Then where do we go next to start the building of the confidence?
Then it's getting down to the tools. And so the way I approach it is I always start with what is it you want in your life? Like, right, just give me 3 or 4 goals that you want to achieve. I want to buy a house. I want to, make sure I'm saving for my kids' education. I may want to buy a business one day, whatever it may be. Okay. Well, all of that takes money. So let's talk about the strategy on how do you maximize your money, whether it's your income coming in, so you're making the most use of it, or your savings, or whatever it is, so you can achieve those goals. Every woman I talk to gets that. Like, I go, that's financial planning.
No
That's it.
kidding. It's
You
the
know,
relationship with
um,
all parts of the
it's all these
cycle.
little levers.
Yes.
Yeah. I go, I'm going to teach you how to maximize your money, which is increasing your cash flow, decreasing your debt, making sure the incoming money is there. And there's lots of different strategies around that, making sure you're investing so you grow your wealth, making sure you're protecting. So when something happens, it doesn't all of a sudden blow up your goals. Every woman gets that. And then it's literally walking through the process. Now, that's how I built my education program. So I take them step by step. Here's what you need to know. And then what's lovely is that these women always tell me, they're like, I'm going through your course and then I have a question. And the next lesson, you answer the question. And I didn't even know
Perfect.
that. I said,
Written
"Because
by
I'm
women for women. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's marvelous. So I think that the journey that you get to go through when you start to see all those parts and how they work together, it certainly helps demystify these things that might have been feelings and it turns them into facts, which is remarkable. I'm curious when you've done this with groups of women, and first question is, what's some of the greatest examples of transformation you've seen? Like, what do the light bulbs look like? What do the aha moments look like? Is it in the capacity to earn? Is it in the understanding of how it moves? Do you go as far as talking about investing, or are you getting people to yeah. So talk to us a little bit about major transformations.
I'd say the first transformation is always that money script. Like they didn't even know what they didn't know. That's how subconscious it is. And like, I didn't even think that I had these belief systems that were impacting my relationship with money and what I'm doing with money and what I'm not doing with money. They had no idea. So that's the first piece because it just opens everything right for them. And it actually is the piece that starts giving them confidence.
Said it would give them like a third lung. Like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I see how this has been
Yeah.
keeping me in the dark,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
And then it's, wow, I can do this. So, and that's, I would say the biggest transformation is the confidence part, right? It just like, and it's not confidence in like, oh, I know how to manage my money. It is confidence like, I can do this.
I see
Like,
the
this isn't
system.
hard.
Yeah.
Why did I think learning how to manage money was hard? I can delegate with confidence. I can go talk to my advisor now and literally sit down and say, no, that doesn't make sense. This makes sense for me.
Is there a generational demographic distinction? My experience with 20 somethings is that they're almost running the books in their households. Like as 20 somethings women, I find that the partnerships with the younger generation right now are a little more balanced. Obviously, the girl's going to work. She's brilliant, kicked butt in university. She got her first job right out the door. Mm, But then I go up to maybe the 40 or 50 or 60 somethings, and we're trending back into some of those older money scripts. My question when it comes to your experience with your audiences and classrooms of ladies that you've worked with, is there a difference in the way that they receive what you give them? Are the younger people already there? Or are they also needing some of this checking of the belief system, the money script?
Some of them are already there, I would say, but I always find there's always gaps.
There's
Like
something. Yes.
every woman has gone through my program said, "God, I learned so much. I thought I knew this, and then I realized I didn't know it." Or, I saw this on TikTok and I realized it was wrong. And then I would say the older generation, again, it's because it was a product of their environment. They were
Sure.
in a different environment.
Yeah.
I think back to even like when we started in the financial industry, there was like, I'm aging myself and there was no internet, you know, it just came in when I was starting in the financial industry. So we didn't have access to the information
Not
that
at
we do
all.
now.
No,
Now,
you're
some of
absolutely
that
right.
does worry me because frankly, there's just way too much noise out there. And I see some of the stuff that's being put out and I'm like, no, that's wrong.
Well, that's what I love about working with a coach. And I think more and more, even though it's becoming easier and easier to get all of your information through an artificial intelligence or through online, it's that distilling of the noise to find the true lever, right? The
Yeah.
true magic message that is so important in working with someone like you. So when you're looking back on your coaching clients, what's the number one barrier that's disguised as a practical problem, but it's actually maybe an emotional or an identity problem?
So once you're in my course, I usually don't see too many issues. That tends to be around investing is risky. You know,
Oh
uh,
gosh, how do we break through that one? Okay,
yeah,
can't wait to hear
yeah.
your thoughts on that.
And again, it's repositioning a
Yeah.
lot of it. I try to tell them actually not investing is riskier.
Yes.
And I walk through like there's an entire course that I do, a lesson that is the case for investing. And I show them the stats around that. So that fear goes away once they take that. Getting them into my community in the program is much harder because a lot of women say, well, no, I need to be confident before I do this. It's like, no, you need the competence to build the confidence. So that's not true. And they typically go to time. I don't have time to do this. That's again, it's emotional.
It's
It's
an
not a,
objection that's tied up in something else. So that goes back
yeah,
to another
the
question I was
fear,
going to ask earlier, which is
the fear.
sometimes people's relationship with money is pushed away or is denied or is pushed down because of a self-worth issue. Like maybe it has to do with presence or absence of safety or presence or absence of worth or presence or absence of power. And if they say I don't have time or whatever the issue, whatever the obstacle is that they're presenting before you, that's often an emotional reality as opposed to a practical reality. How do you break through that?
Yeah, well, it's tough. I could do it once they're in the community because I
Uh-huh.
actually right? But when they're not, it's difficult to have that conversation. Sometimes they just say, "Yeah, I find that it's just a trigger. Something's gonna happen to them.
Yes,
It's gonna say, okay, I
I
need
gotta do
to do
that.
this."
Yeah,
Fortunately, though, they tend to be a death or a divorce or financial infidelity or something else. I'm always happy. Like I always say, it's never too late to get in and learn these things, but I wish you had started before.
no kidding.
You never want to be in a reactive position. You want to be in a proactive position. I'll tell you what's really interesting is that, I had a sales funnel where women would see my sort of ads and they would go to a free money masterclass and I would talk a little bit about how I approach money and the things that they would learn. Um, and you get them emotionally. And, this is the trick, I guess, all these salespeople, you got to get them emotionally. I wish I didn't have to do that. I almost feel like I'm tricking them in
Sure.
because there's a logical, obviously, a very sound reason for you to understand your finances. And then they get in, and then there's a little bit of a panic like, do I want to take this? Oh, maybe I want a refund. And then they start, they're like, "Oh, you know what? I'll just start. I got 30 days before I get a refund." And they start, and then no one backs out. They're like,
Right.
"Oh, this is good." It's almost like I have to force them.
Yeah.
You gotta force them, say, "No, you're gonna do this because I know this is good for you." And then they do it, and they're like, "Oh, thank God. I'm so
But I
glad."
wonder if that's where this part of the magic and the strength is in the female money manager, in the woman who is in control of her finances, is that money is feelings. Like, I actually don't think you're tricking them. I actually think you're tapping into what their genius is. Yes, we need to know the facts and we need to dispel the myths of how it is we got here with this old money script that doesn't serve us. But I mean, I think if I were to try and articulate what are women good at? We talked about this before we got on today. We're good at making sure everybody has some. We're good at being concerned for the bigger circle around us, not just ourselves. We're good at outward focus. And I just have to wonder if some of what's magical about what you're doing is that you're harnessing the fact that women are feeling based more than they're
Yeah.
rational based. And that gives them fuel to do this even better than if they were
Yeah.
not.
100%. It's good that you put it that way because I didn't actually think about it that way. I mean, I see it as, my job is sort of peeling off the layers, because I mean, women are so good. They have so many strengths and I know they recognize it. And then for some reason, when it comes to money, it's like, I'm not good at this. And I'm like, of course you are. You just haven't spent time to learn it. That's all
Yeah,
it is.
100%.
So a lot of it is kind of peeling that off and then showing them that there's strengths that everybody has, men and women, but in my case it's women. And I'm going to show you how you tap into that.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. So you talked about, yes, we care about people, our community and our families, and we think sort of long term. We're also better at assessing risk. And this whole idea around women are risk averse. I don't
No, they're
I'm not
just risk intelligent.
Yeah, they're risk aware. Look, if they are risk averse, it's because they don't have a lot. Like if they're in a position, like if you look at someone, and this is not necessarily about women, but if you look at someone who's paycheck to paycheck, of course they're going to be more risk averse because losing $1,000 for them is completely different than someone who makes $200,000 and loses $1,000.
Mhm,
So we have to put it in perspective.
mhm.
Women are far more risk aware. And it's funny, I just did a LinkedIn newsletter on this. I said, we're in a place where women are judged by being risk aware because the culture now is again, that male energy, the Mars energy is like fail fast, move light speed ahead. Okay, so when a man fails, what are the consequences?
Mhm.
When a woman fails, there are consequences.
Sure there
All of
are.
a sudden, she's labeled as not good at her job. Oh, and then they attack her looks. I mean, I see this all the time
Sure.
on LinkedIn. So then you wonder why they're risk aware.
Yeah, no kidding. And we do I mean, again, no discredit to men, but
Yeah.
when you look at the number of life journeys that a woman goes through in entering a world that is still predominantly male dominated in a lot of industries, having kids and trying to hold on to that career and then reaching a point where we're now caregiving for parents, like, they does tend to fall to the woman. And
Yeah,
so,
it
yeah,
does.
we're gonna be risk averse or risk aware because we have a lot more moving parts than just, throw the Hail Mary pass and hope it works and, balls to the wall. Let's just
Yeah.
go for it. We can't do
Yeah.
that necessarily. I wanna
Jillian, I
ask you.
don't know about you, but my
Yeah.
experience is I ask a lot of questions. Maybe that's the journalist in me, but I do ask. And anytime I'm dealing kind of with a male client or a vendor or something, you can kind of see a little bit of their backup, like, oh, she's just asking, like, risk averse. It's like, no, I'm risk aware
Yeah, we have
and
to
I'm
build the
asking
picture.
questions that don't make me feel bad when
No
I do.
kidding. I agree. And I've often used that to describe what it's like to begin working with a new female client because the upfront work with a new female client is much more prolonged, not necessarily in time, but certainly in depth. They
But then
ask
once
all
they're
those
in,
questions because they want to form the full picture. They want to fully understand. They need to see how the system works. And then they can fully be themselves. And that's where I think that Venus energy is really, really a superpower. That once you see
it
the
is.
system, the Venus energy is pretty killer. It's pretty amazing.
It is. And I don't let any women in my program or in my community say, don't let anybody gaslight you that that's the wrong way to do it. It is the absolute right way
Yeah.
to be approaching things.
Yes. What do you think about, and this could be just a Saijal question, or it could be a women in money question, or it could be a coaching question, but what do you think about having to absorb this cultural message that women shouldn't be ambitious? That wanting more is somehow a bad thing. Is that, what do you think of that? I don't want to keep talking. I'm just going to ask.
I feel like we still are facing it's like this identity crisis that we're going through because on one hand, women tend to be more nurturing and I see this kind of push pull of like, well, how can I be a nurturing person and a caring person and then want all this money? Like the two just don't align, which is why I think so many women do say, oh, yeah, money is kind of the root of evil. And I have to again say, is it? No, money has no power. Attach good values to it. It's no longer evil. There's so much that you can do with money if you made it. I don't care, give it away.
Well, that's the thing. Is it, do you want the money in the hands of the people that are doing evil with it? Or do you want
Yes.
to believe so strongly in your values that you deserve that money because you're going to deploy it in ways that make the world a better place? And I
Yeah.
think that comes around to the conversation I said we were going to have, which is, what would the world look like if there had been a more equitable distribution of money and
Yeah.
earning power? Would we all just be like men because nothing would have been distinct? Or do we now have this incredible opportunity to earn more and do something really powerful with it to change some of the things that are happening?
I think it's a crisis right now. And this is why I do what I do. And I know what you do what you do is because I mean, it is imperative that women have more wealth and we start seeing more of that balance in our world. Like you said, the Mars energy and the Venus energy, right? We need that balance because Jillian, I am looking around and I mean, I was a business journalist, CNBC and BNN, and I could see, like, I covered the financial crisis, the great financial crisis. There's so much stuff that I started seeing where, money is power and it's influence, and men control 70% of it.
Wow, that's a big number.
It's
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
Now, it is shifting because
No
women
kidding.
are
Yeah.
inheriting that money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, what is the story out there? Oh, women are inheriting money. Okay. So what? What are they doing with it?
No
We
kidding.
got to prepare women so they're not just spending it or giving it away. I mean, it's important, but I'm like, no, this is the opportunity right now in the next 10 years to say, how do we empower these women to be financially fluent so we start building businesses and influencing the economy and political decisions. What I am seeing right now, and just look around of the turmoil south of the border, but everywhere else, I'm actually seeing it everywhere,
Hmm.
is that all these conversations that I'm seeing on LinkedIn is women are saying we're going backwards. Like
Yeah.
we're not moving ahead. They're getting, they're being forced to leave work because of caregiving and all these things. And it's concerning because I said that's exactly how the system's designed. If you leave,
Yes.
then the men can continue to have the wealth and the power and the influence.
Yep.
How do we convince women not to leave? It's not easy. I get it. They're like, I'm sick and tired of this. It's not working for me. Okay. So you can go and run a little business. Fine. Is that business going to be influential enough that we can start changing policies?
Something, right? Just something. I wrote this down earlier. I was on the call with a coach earlier today, and it was about producing an event for later this year. And the line that came out was, what has to be true for you to want to? No, for you to have to. Keep giving, start building, move forward, create change. And you're right. You get to that age 50, 55, 60. If a woman starts to burn out because she's again back in a caregiver role and also at the top of her game, but something has to give because emotionally we're more connected to our family than we are to our
Yeah,
job, that's a damn shame that
I
we
know.
start to lose that brain drain of talent. So what would have to be true? I mean, it's a systems problem. It's definitely a systems problem with how caregiving is administered and how families talk about that part too. Maybe it's about investing in a different structure so that you're not the
Yeah.
person leaving work to go take care of family. You are investing some of the money you've made to go take care of family while you continue to do the work. But I also wonder if it's a systems problem related to women's medicine too, which is a whole other topic. But you're right. There's a bit of a rigging of the game at this
I know,
point
and
we need
it's
to
not
fight.
an easy solution.
Yeah.
It is. But here's the thing, Jillian, this is why I want to create, I've created this membership community that, I was telling you about, Strictly Money Collective, where I'm bringing in future leaders at corporations and entrepreneurs to say, let's create this space where we not only learn about money, but we talk about money. Because traditionally, women have not had that space. Men have it all the time, I know because I'm at that. I'm in that room just naturally because of what I do in my interest. But, men are always having conversations at the bar or the locker room or in board meetings. And just a natural topic where it just leads to like business ideas and politics and the economy.
It's free
Um,
flowing. Yeah.
yeah, I want that for women. I think it's so important that we start bringing women into these rooms and these conversations to say, look, this is not financial literacy. Like, yes, you have to learn the tools, but it's so important to actually understand how the economy works and our role in it and all the things that we can do to make this world a better place and for future generations.
And to think big about it, I think that's the other thing too, is you get a couple of guys in a room and they take off pretty quickly with exponentially increasing ideas that nobody in the room can actually afford, but they don't mind talking about it.
Yeah.
You get women in a room and we sometimes kind of think small because we think that's what we're supposed to do. So I really love that you're starting that conversation. And I would love to be part of those conversations to get people to sort of really think outside the box on what's possible with the wealth that they have. And to your point about the tools that you provide, it's how do you start taking those leaps of faith to build something and know you're going to be okay? Because you need to make sure that you're also doing the wise thing from a conservative perspective to take care of yourself before you go and start changing the world. So that's a different balancing act, I think.
Yeah, but I think financial education does do that, right? How do you navigate all the complications of the world without understanding how to do that? Like you
Hmm.
actually need the tools to do that. So if X happens, I know that I have, you know, A, B, and C option.
Right.
But you don't know that if you've never been taught it.
100%. I'm curious when you teach people in your coaching who are actually in, let's say, mixed partner relationships. So maybe if you teach women who are together, they're with you. But you teach a woman who has a husband or a boyfriend who is not part of the coaching. How does that go down? Because I feel like that could be great or it could be spicy. How does that work out?
In my case, it's always been positive. Yeah, unless it has been negative and they're not telling me,
Yes.
which is a possibility. But I can tell you some of the conversations. So when women come into my program, like I'm literally like there's spreadsheets and nothing's really complicated, but they're going through and they're like, well, can my husband get involved? And I go, of course. How do you plan your life goals if your partner is not involved? The difference is you're leading them.
Yes. Okay.
So
That is what I wanted to hear is that there's just
that's
like either an equal voice or there's a leadership thing that
yes.
happens
Or
there.
like the husband can sit down and watch the video with you.
Yes.
The thing is you're forced to not pass it on,
Yes.
right? You have to be engaged when you're part of my community. And it's incredibly powerful. Like, I have to tell you, I tell you, Jillian, I get emails and I literally am crying. I get tears because I know what an impact this is making. And sometimes you don't realize it. But, I had a woman, South Asian, in the program, didn't have a lot of confidence. And she would say on our, like, we do these live Ask Me Anything calls. And, I'm like, what do you want to learn? Let's talk about this. Again, just a space to learn about money and talk about it. And she said, "Well, this is a few years ago, we are talking about inflation and all the stuff that was happening after the pandemic." And the husband kind of said, "Well, what do you know? Like, what do you know?" And so I said, "Well, do you want to know what happened? Do you want to understand inflation and why it wasn't transitory?" And I walked them through and I had slides and everything. And she went back and had this conversation. I guess something was on the news and she said, "Well, no, actually that's not true. This is what happened." And he kind of just looked at her and said, how did you learn that? She's like, Sajal's community. And so the next time she came back, I just
Marvelous.
laughed and I said, how do you feel? And she goes, it was just so rewarding, like so rewarding. And she said, he looks at me differently now. Like she could
I
just
love that. That is
love that.
marvelous.
I had women who said,
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to teach my teenage children anything about money. And for the first time, I'm teaching them all the things that you're teaching me. I'm passing on that wisdom. I said, that's exactly what this is about. I had another woman, she was 25, and she's like, I'm taking this financial education course. And she sat down with her parents and she said, I learned that like their RSP, everything was kind of set up wrong. And so I was able to walk them through it and said, okay,
Wow,
now
what a cool exercise.
exercise. Yeah.
Yeah, to send them home and say, let's just do a little check in, a second opinion on how your family members have things set up. That you bring a really good point up to mind, which is, we talk about certain men as the people that are the know it alls in the room, but there's just as many men out there as there are women who have feelings underneath the money
Right.
conversation. So there's a lot of households where it is a mixed partnership and they still aren't talking about money. And if the
No.
woman can be the leader in that conversation with the language and the safe exercises to be able to go through, that's not only powerful for the couple, but super powerful, as you point out, for their kids as well. Gosh,
Yeah.
wow, game
Yeah.
changer.
You look, even with men, right? They have money scripts,
Mhm,
just like you and I do.
mhm.
They're judged on, how much they make and stuff. So I don't blame them at all. But I always try to remind, at least, because I have access to the women, I said, this is a partnership and you're going to reach your goals much faster when you're rowing the same way. If you guys are in a rowboat, one's going the other way and like you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah,
So this is important. And there are different ways to do that. You don't need the exact same risk tolerance. You can certainly invest the way you invest and he invests the way he does. But the important part is to communicate and how to
communicate,
have
the
those
language,
conversations.
exactly, the
Yeah.
connection.
And
Yeah,
understand that we have emotions that we probably have
yeah, yeah, and I like that you're pulling back and you're saying, "We have a script." It's not you, it's not a problem with you, it's that you have a script, you're kind of externalizing it in a way that is really cool. So, what would you say is the greatest potential that women have right now in changing the way people talk about money? What's their alpha? What's the hidden miracle that's in the way that women can be to change the way that money conversations happen in homes? Let's go with that.
I think it's just recognizing they have strengths, and it's pulling back the layers to reveal what those strengths are and then doubling down on it. And,
Okay,
and to
I
me,
like that.
doubling down about it,
Yeah,
on it is the education and the tools. Like I'm giving that to them in a community so they can exponentially, strengthen whatever skills they have. That's how I see it. I mean, women are so capable, and I always, it's sad when I see them undermine themselves or
mhm,
self-select out
mhm.
of financial education. I see it all the time. And honestly, it doesn't even matter at what level. Like there's senior executives that do it, and there are people who are, homemakers that do it. Like
Yeah,
there isn't a lot of difference,
unpacking that.
which
Gotta
is why
unpack
it's a
that.
lot more emotional, I
Yeah.
realize. Yeah.
Yeah, you said something several times throughout this conversation that I think is really powerful too. My reading of women when they get together in a group, especially if they can rewrite the script, the belief just a little bit, is that they tend to want to co-elevate each other. They're very good at holding each other accountable. So are you seeing that friendships form in these rooms when you coach people in the community? Are they supporting each other in ways that is kind of an extra piece of the magic that wouldn't otherwise be there if it weren't for the community? How does that work?
That's exactly why I designed it the way I did. Because if you're taking my program and I'm educating you, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day, Jillian. I said, I'm actually not the most powerful person in that room. It's them. I'm the educator, but they still look at me as like, okay, but she's here and she's learned all these things. The power comes from the women learning from each other and realizing, oh, they're in the same boat as I am, or I'm not the only one who feels like that. That's actually the power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's
Huge power
incredible
and
to
huge,
watch.
amazing motivation that comes from that, that is extra fuel that probably takes people way further than if they ever tried to tackle this themselves, which they won't do. So everyone
No,
needs
and
to
it
work with
holds
you.
them accountable, right? So when they
Yeah.
come in, they're like, "Oh, I forgot to take the course. Life has gotten busy, but yeah, I'm gonna just book an hour in my calendar and continue on the lessons." And these women, they all think, "Well, no, my situation's unique," you know, and then they realize, you know what? Maybe it's not
I'm
unique.
not that
I
unique.
didn't realize that there are other women who are, I don't know, wealthier or a different ethnicity or whatever it is, and they feel exactly as I do. It's incredible to see.
Incredible. Thank you so much. I have a closing question that I ask of every guest on the Flourish Feed podcast. It has to do with the 1,440 minutes that you have every single day. And I have to bet that there's one or two of them that you seek out or that you notice that I refer to as the moment of bliss. It's a very, very small thing that gives you very, very big joy. Sajal Patel, what's your moment of bliss?
So I knew you were going to ask me this. And what I do in the morning, Jillian, is I have this meditation practice. It's not long, it's a minute. Some people can like sit and meditate. I can't do that. Like that's just not me. So I write something out, right? So part of it is like the visualizing of where I want to be personally and in business, three things that I'm grateful for. I send energy out to somebody that's struggling, just positive energy, because I really do believe that we are all energy. And I have this book that I read from every day because it's literally 365. I don't know if you can see it. It's called The Book of Awakening and it's by Mark Nepo. I swear every single human being should have this book.
Wow.
It's it,
Okay.
it is incredible. I just discovered it a couple of months ago because I was doing yoga and our yoga teacher read um, a piece of it. And I thought, "Oh my god, this is so powerful." And then I got this book, and so now I read from it every single day.
And there's your moment of bliss.
That's
That
my
is remarkable. Thank you so very much. For those who want to know more about Sajal, we can find out at sajel.com. I will put the link in the show notes. Thank you for showing us that money isn't just about earning or investing. It's also a lot about who we are under the hood. There's going to be a massive flow of money that's already begun into the hands of so many women worldwide. We want to be confident with that money. Thank you for showing us the way. I look forward to staying in touch and working with you again. Have an awesome day, Sajal.
Thanks for having me, Jillian. It was a
My
wonderful
pleasure.
conversation.